What up, y'all? State Almighty, aka the Global Dark Skin Ambassador. I haven't done a prison video in a while, so I figured I'd give the people what they need. And these are the 9 darkest and biggest truths about prison that they hardly ever tell you or they never tell you. So without further ado, we're gonna run it from 9 to 1, starting with number 9. Prison is way, way, way more scary than you ever thought it would be, and way more violent than you ever thought it would be. This is a place that you don't want to go. I repeat, this is a place that you don't want to go. A lot of people, we're caught up in the facade of wanting to be a gangster and wanting to be in the streets. But this is the thing, right? It's true when they tell you it's death or prison. And prison is so fucked up to a point where half the time you will wish you were dead so you wouldn't have to be in prison suffering whatever you're suffering from. You know, prison is not a place for the weak. Prison is not a place for the mentally weak. You will see things like people getting jumped, people getting stabbed, people getting their jaws broken. You know, people making weapons out of shaving razors, parts from haircut clippers and glass, and I mean not glass, but you know, the materials that make up radiators and pieces of windows and things like that. It's a very dangerous place, and at any random point, violence can happen to you or anyone else around you. You do not want to. Number 8, right? Everyone who comes home from prison, right? A lot of people, they tend to have this story and base themselves as the Don Juan in the story, as if they're the most gangster people. But here's the thing about prison, right? The real gangsters will always be the police. You want to know why? Because the police are the ones giving orders. They're the people who you have to ask for permission. So the biggest gangsters, it doesn't matter what gang he's in, 9.9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 9, he's doing whatever the police tell him to do. Whatever the officer / guard is telling him to do or not to do, right? He has to obey that, because here's the thing, right? Depending on what prison you're in, you disobey the police or you offend the wrong police, right? You will end up having your water cut off, your lights turned out, and then your mother will come and look for you and they'll tell her you've been transferred somewhere and your paperwork will just mysteriously get lost. It's that simple. The biggest gangsters in the world, they have to take orders from the officers. So how much of a gangster are you for real if you're answering to somebody? That's the number 7. Or number 7 in the darkest truths about prison they never tell you. Being in a gang is the most oppressive thing you could ever partake in within being in prison. It's the most oppressive thing. Unless, of course, they do a paperwork party on you and you come out to be a rat or someone who does naughty, nasty things to women or children. But for the most part, it's being in a gang. Why? Because you're in a constant state of stress. You're in a constant, perpetual state of, at any moment, it can happen. You're in a constant, perpetual state of fight or flight mode. When you're in a gang, you can have beef coming your way that you never even knew was coming your way, simply because of a particular set that you rep, simply because you're just there. And they may have been looking for somebody who represented your set, but that person is not there and you happen to be there. Also, you're in a perpetual state of oppression because the people above you, they're always trying to get you to do things that you don't want to do. This is things that the gang members do not tell you. The people above them who have authority over them, they're constantly telling them to do things they don't want to do. Hey, listen, you want more stripes in this gang? Cut that person, stab that person, do this, that. And here's the thing, right? If you don't do it, the thing that they want you to do to somebody, it'll be done. Reason number 6, darkest truths that they don't tell you about prison. Most gang members are followers and only join the gang for protection. This is probably the most known thing, but I just want to reiterate that this is what happens. This is what happens. So let's say you have a gang and you have, let's say it has 1,000 members, right? It's safe to say 600 to 700 of those members are not really as tough as they claim to be. They're not really as solid as they claim to be. They joined the gang on the outside because they wanted protection or they wanted to feel down and feel tough. They got wrapped up in a state indictment or a federal indictment, and now they're locked up with their gang. Most of them, I wouldn't even say half, most of them end up snitching anyway, bringing the whole gang down. It'd be the death of a dynasty. Trust me, I know about this, you know, and that's just how it goes. That's just how it goes. They not really who they say they are. There's a whole facade about gang life that I need young people to understand, which is that when you get locked up, someone's going to tell on you. It's a guarantee, right? No one's going to look after your children. No one's going to look after your mom. If anything, they're going to try to put dick in your baby mama or your girlfriend or your wife. And you got to worry about the fidelity of your girl after 6 months, because these women got needs. And the great man once said, hoes will be hoes. So I couldn't blame Tammy, Wayne. So what is it really about? You're going to join the gang, you're going to go to jail, you know what I'm saying? Chances are you joined the gang just because you wanted to have some people that got your back and you just wanted to feel tough. But what's it for now? Now you're in prison. Now you're doing 10, 20, 30 years or more, depending on the severity of your crime. And for what? People are going to forget about you after the first 6 months to a year. These are just facts. So don't go to prison. Don't be a dumbass. The brokest inmates are the most ruthless. The inmates who do not have a support system at home, these are the inmates who do the most extortion, the most theft, the most oppressive, most annoying, most pig-headed inmates are the inmates who do not have a support system at home. Number 4, for the most part, gang members are the biggest haters in prison. The biggest haters in prison. And I'm just going to leave Number 3, almost all male inmates or inmates, period, you can include women in this too, grew up without their father in their lives or a positive male role model, okay? Because even if you grew up with your father, he could be a junkie, he could be a predator, or he could be someone who just wasn't hands-on with you as a child. You didn't grow up with the love and the discipline that it took for you to avoid the street life. You know, like for example, me, right? Had my father been around, I know for a fact that my life would have had a way different trajectory, because I knew my father loved me. He just happened to pass away when I was 3 years old. But I have no older brother. He was very much involved in my older brother's life. I knew that if I had begun to become involved in the streets, my father would have either whooped the stupidity out of me, or he would have moved me to a safer location where I didn't have those kinds of influences. And this is what happens to all children. Not all children, but a lot of children, especially in the kind of communities that we come from. So if you have children, even if you don't get along with their mom, do your best to explain to your kids, especially your boys, the effects of the street life, and try to provide a positive outlet for them to take instead of the streets. Because I worry about this now, being that I do not have custody of my children and they're growing up in New York City of all places, especially the Bronx. The second darkest truth about prison that nobody will ever tell you is that everyone will move on without you. They'll say free you. They may have cookouts in your honor. You know, they may reminisce with people on the outside about the crimes that you've done or the women who you ran trains with them with. But here's the thing. The money on the books is going to stop pretty soon. Okay? The letters, constant letters, is going to stop pretty soon. The phone calls, as life moves on, sometimes or a lot of times, they're going to get to a point where they're like, I don't feel like talking to this nigga today. He don't got nothing to talk about. He locked up. He probably just going to ask me for money, right? The people who stick with you are your mom, your grandmother. Like, for example, right? My mom was the most loyal person to me during my bid and the most consistent person, her and my stepfather, John. Any visits I needed her to come, she came. Anytime I needed money, she gave me money. I had women in my life, you know. I had a girlfriend at the time where I got locked up. She came to see me one time, 11 months into my bid. She cheated on me and got with the guy who she was with before me. I had one more girl came to see me once. Never put any money on my books or anything. I had another girl came to see me once. You know, she was pretty fine. You know, it's cool. You know, we tongue kissed on the dance floor before she left. Never seen her again, never heard from her again. The most consistent person in my life was my mother. And then I come home from prison and I have to hear these stories from my sister telling me about the many times where my mother might have been drinking or something and she called my sister crying because of how much she missed her son. You know, these people suffer with you and they do the bid with you in spirit. You know, emotionally and mentally, they do the bid with you. Number one, darkest truth that they never tell you. At least for me, but I bet to say that a lot of people will say this. Prison saved my life. Prison will save your life. It will. And the reason why it will, or I'll specify it just with me. Prison saved my life because When you in the streets and you doing crime and you having fun getting that adrenaline rush from selling crack or being in shootouts, beating people up, robbing people, scamming, whatever, there's a high that comes from it. There's a thrill. And you do not respect your freedom because you don't fully understand, you can't comprehend in your mind that your freedom, literally, by law, can and will be taken away from you. So once you sit yourself down, once they sit you down to do enough time, you have enough time to reflect and think about your future. A lot of times, the only chances a young man from the hood has to really sit down and think about his future and think about where he went wrong is in prison. Outside of prison, everything is moving fast, especially in this technological age that we live in. Everything is moving fast. A lot of times, the only place you have to sit and calm your mind down and focus is in prison. Prison saved my life. Do I wish there would have been something that was preventative to keep me from going to prison? Yes, but I didn't have that. I'm from the Bronx. All we have is the streets and home. That's it. But prison saved my life. It helped me understand things like respecting other people's space and making sure people respect your space. It helped me understand the proper ways to talk to people. It helped me understand the value of saying, excuse me, pardon self. And number one, it helped me understand that I don't ever want to go to this motherfucking place again. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Peace.